Quite a long time ago now, I did some work fitting the radiator, which, if you remember, is from a Land Rover. And here it is. I think I called the episode Cooling the V6, and I've extended that with some top mounts, which it didn't have before, here, as you see, and also down here, which is for the air conditioning radiator, and even at the front, the oil cooler. But just as I had finished that piece of work, I realised something unfortunate, and that is that this bonnet hinge and this hose outlet will clash as the bonnet comes down. So this bracket here, the whole thing needs to move over a bit. Now this radiator here is suspended, well, this bracket, as you can see, but also this bracket over here, which is actually welded to the top mount for the radiator. And if I can push the radiator over that way, but this bracket's going to have to be remade. And in fact, this one is going to have to change. In fact, probably there will be something like this one here as well. Anyway, I was cogitating all of that, and I decided that maybe it's not quite as pretty as it could be. So I'm going to change this top mount situation, and I'm going to use a big sheet of aluminium going across there. So that's what I have here, and it's 2mm sheet, and I think it'll look quite pretty, and that's important. Alright, here we go then. It's not quite a 90-degree bend I'm going for. It's like an 80-degree bend, I think. Okay, let's see how that looks. So this is the gap between the radiator and the radiator support frame, which also has the oil cooler on it. Into that gap will have to go the air conditioning radiator. So it needs to hang around about there, and this has given rise to a considerable amount of cardboard aided design. So this is the left bracket and this is the right bracket, which I now have to transfer onto aluminium, as you can see. And this is the aforementioned air conditioning radiator, and in fact it fits on, or it will fit on, like that, and like that, with these tabs bent over. So anyway, I now need to cut those out. And the best tool I've discovered at the moment for cutting aluminium like this, as I don't have a plasma cutter, is an electric jigsaw. So let's see about that then. Okay, that's not too bad. So that's 2mm aluminium sheet cut with an electric jigsaw. So I've obviously got to tidy it up, and I may or may not get around to cutting that speed hole in the middle. But yeah, that wasn't too bad really. Bend this up and hopefully it'll fit in the car. After doing some fine assessments about how far up inside there the bracket can go, I can drill the first mounting hole on the actual air conditioning radiator, which will be, because the mounting holes each side are not the same as each other, which will be here, and it's an M8 I think. So I'm going to drill a slightly bigger hole, I think. And I'll drill the holes one at a time. And I'm going to drill the hole out to 8.5. There's a little bit of doing it by eye here. Okay, let's see if that goes on. That's bizarre. It's a black hole in a black piece of painted metal. I couldn't actually see the hole even though it's right in front of me. Now there is a little bit of error, so I'm going to have to stretch the hole slightly. Yes, it does. Just barely. Let's screw these in for good measure. Right, bracket number 1. Right, okay, that looks alright. Now this piece here is going to be bent round, but yeah, that looks about right. Looks like it could possibly do a little bit more tidying, and these hook things here are superfluous, so especially where they're in the way, I'm just going to take them off, I think. So here's my radiator, and here, if you can make it out in black, is my air conditioning radiator, and here, I hope you can see this, is the bracket, the bent one that I just made, and it needs to eventually rest on here. This bracket here has a hole, there are 2 holes actually, one there, and be bolted together. So the other bracket is not yet bent, which is why it's leaning back like that. So this one needs to be bent as well, and then the whole thing will lean forward. Now the thing is that I need to put this previously made bracket, which is for the main radiator, in place, and it needs to go like that. And that's got 4 mounting holes. It all needs to line up. So by the look of it, what I'm going to finish up with is a single mounting hole for the air conditioning radiator, which is approximately, I might shove it over a little bit actually. Which is approximately on this plane. And here it is. So that's now leaning right against the bracketry here. And it's leaning quite far forward because the bottom bracket isn't yet present. So I'm going to have to take a guess on the height. But that's all for the radiator bracket back in place. To check that it looks likely to fit at the same time. Yeah, that all looks fine. Okay, so it's now standing almost upright. I've got a jack under it. So I'm going to pull it backwards so it stands up and mark the holes through the brackets in here. Yep, I've got one dot. Let's get the other one. One dot, two dots. So let's drill a couple of holes in that then. Now I've only drilled one of my two holes because the just wanting to get a bit more accuracy really, and because there was other marks with that pen already present on the other side, I wasn't sure where the real mark is. So I'm going to temporarily bolt this side up. There it goes. Now I haven't been able to put a nut on it because it's such a close fit. We'll come back to that in a moment. But anyway, now I can mark the other side with more certainty that it's the right place, the right hole, the right mark. Okay, that's definitely in position. So we'll take the whole thing out again and drill the other side. And yep, that clears. Now we should better put the whole thing, and everything should line up. And I can see that there is scope for a little bit of trimming here, where this bracket is a bit on the big side, so I'll probably do that as well. In fact, I might do it before putting it back in the car. So I'm just about finished with these now. I did find that the flat disc was excellent at smoothing the edges off. Flat disc on the angle grinder, very neat. And I also, because I knew that I was going to have trouble getting the nuts on the bolts, I have actually used riv nuts, which are just right, and that will have a dual function of fixing this bracket onto the radiator frame as well as the radiator bracket itself. Be like a bracket sandwich. One thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to be putting that speed hole in, which in fact you can still see traces of where I was thinking of doing it. It's actually not as stiff and as strong as I thought it was going to be. This is 2mm plate, and I think if I was going to do this again I might even consider 3mm or steel, but in the meantime that looks pretty good actually. I think I'll just, because that's exposed a bit more of a sharp edge. Okay then, so we have two brackets. The other one I shall deal with in just a moment. Alright then, so I shall put the two brackety things into place. In it goes. Which way up is it? This way. And so finally, for this sub-project, we have the radiator with a top mount stroke shroud. We have the air conditioning radiator, the bottom of which will be mounted to this bar here. I hope you can see that, which with the bracket welded. That's a mere bagatelle, as they say, to do that, but I shall do it with the radiator out, which will happen before long anyway. And at the front we have the oil cooler, so that's the general cooling pack. Oil cooler, air conditioning radiator, and sitting behind it all, the main radiator, which, as I've said before, is from a Land Rover. I hope that's enough. It will certainly do for the time being. Now the engine isn't in. Now the radiator, the main engine radiator, is I think is okay actually. So let's ignore that. But what definitely isn't okay is this business, which is the lower mountings for the air conditioning radiator. Now, yeah, I can see that that's going to be hopefully very easy to weld on a couple of brackets onto this mounting bar that I hope you can see there for this side brackets to pick up. And after the traditional cardboard aided design, I've come up with these. Not quite the same left and right. That's due to the hoses on the aircon radiator. Now I've got to cut these out. And after a bit of refabrication in metal, I can tack the new brackets on to the existing radiator support frame crossmember thing. Bit of paint burning off there. Okay. So just need to fully weld that. Put a couple of bolts through there, which I might as well do even before I take the little radiator out. Alright then, that's now nicely mounted, but I do need a bit of a tidy up and fully weld those brackets, which means I'm going to have to take that out again, unfortunately. Back in a sec. So here is my new aircon radiator bracket, and well, the bottom, as the new part, is down here, and it works very well with the existing radiator bracket thing. Let me zoom you in here. So the thing I call the radiator bracket actually picks up on the anti-roll bar mountings. So these are new brackets that I've made. This tube that runs across here is something I've made with these tabs, which you might better just pick out is what the main radiator is sitting on each side, and the new part is this vertical tab with the bolt going through it. So one of those each side, and then mounted at the top on the bracketry there, which also picks up the shroud stroke top bracket for the radiator, which I'll show you in just a moment. sandwiches in the aircon bracketry. And there we go. That's my, what do they call it? Cooling pack. A little bit of rattle potential there. Yes, might need a grommet or something on that. But that's a mere detail, I think. So I think I can now regard the radiator cooling pack as being done, complete with the, get you off here, with the Land Rover Defender radiator, which is a good thickness. I don't know, is that triple core or something? The scale, that's about 3 inches. The Mocal oil cooler, and the aforementioned aircon radiator, which hopefully you can see from Car Builder Solutions. So that's it.